On the spot. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Before I get started, how many of you are English speakers? Primarily English speakers. So be in English then. That's fine. I've got the English version of my presentation here. My name is Sergej Visser. Might still be some people coming in, so I'll leave the door ajar. Hi, welcome. I haven't really started yet. Yeah, this is one of our stuff. Een beetje te makkelijk.
Ik hoop dat je nu extra nerveus wordt.
En dat zit niet echt in mij.
Oké.
Nee, sorry. That wouldn't be real. All right. First off, before I get started, how many of you are teachers, if I may ask? Can you raise your hands? Okay, so you're most probably looking forward to the
Tools.
I thought so. Yeah, it's teachers. Give me something that I can use tomorrow. Yes, but I will. But you need some background information. Probably you know all of this. But in order for it to stick, you may need some models or some images, because you've seen Oliver maybe today, Oliver Caviglioli. He makes it perfectly clear that retention is a lot higher when we get some images. So I'll try to do my best to model it. Would be great. First, something about me. My name is Sergej Visser. Last name is pretty Dutch because that's the Frisian side. First name is pretty Russian because that's my mother. I'm an English teacher. I've been an English teacher for 21 years now. EFL teacher. So here in Holland, a very normal school, I would say. I've got one of my former pupils here. Would you say this is an average school or what?
No, I think it kind of stands out.
What? Our school? Okay, good. Go on. Yeah.
For the kind of knowledge that is amongst its teachers.
All right. I never looked upon it that way.
And it's a shame that Saskia is not.
Okay. What's that?
From that perspective, when Saskia was there. Like,
oh yeah, but she left.
Yeah. I didn't calculate that one.
Yeah. So no, I'd say this is a pretty average school with some exceptions. Is that acceptable? Good. In Soest, smack in the middle of Holland, I live in Hilversum with my wife and 6 kids. Yeah. No.
He made it all.
No, we don't even know. And no, and they all came one by one. So they're 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, 1, which is in itself pretty easy to remember. But their dates of birth, not so much. Recently, I had to go to what was it? The chemists, and they asked me for my son's date of birth, and they couldn't find him, which was logical because I'd given them the wrong ones. Anyway, enough about that. I've been a teacher of English for 21 years, and I still enjoy it a lot, partly because we've developed our own program. 10 to 15 years ago, something like that, we were totally fed up with what we were doing in class. Because, you know, we're English teachers, so most people are quite good at it. Some people in Ireland are not so good at it. They need our help. Most of them don't really need our help to get a 6. And they're like, you know, they sit around like that. They just exist in class. And maybe do something, and maybe not, and then get a 6, which is not satisfactory for anyone who's involved. So we were fed up with that. And we thought we have to change our curriculum step by step, starting with literature and then progressing onwards to all other skills. And we did, and it took us well, it's still taking us, but we started 40 years ago. And we've been teaching all of our own materials for a decade now, and it's still developing. Last Tuesday we had a session in which we were evaluating our lesson series. We have 4 terms. Each term is a lesson series. They need to be evaluated, and often they need to be reworked. It's a lot of work, but it's also fun. And basically I'm here to tell you what I've done and what I find that works and why I think it works. Okay? Are you still okay? Because it's 6th session. Yeah.
Speak a little bit louder.
Yeah, I can try to. All right? Let's start off with an inspirational quote or two. Teaching is the greatest act of optimism, and there is no failure, only feedback. Now that in itself is a very positive and optimistic quote, and I think that's the way to go. I mean, you need to make a sufficient number of failures to be actually learning something. Me, I'm the person who has to make a lot of failures to actually learn stuff, which is kind of lame. That's because I don't listen well enough to other people. That's why I became a teacher, I suppose. But then again, it really helps sometimes. Generally, the best teachers are the optimists. They're the ones who see possibilities in their pupils. Right? That's why we became teachers in the first place. We see possibilities. And we sometimes get the news that we've made a difference, which is lovely. Yeah? Let's optimize that. Making a difference. We're also optimists because teaching is so complicated, as is learning, and we're still believing that we can make a difference. Yeah? What about that learning? How does it work? Well, in order to be a good teacher, one must know something about how learning works. We're scratching the surface here, don't expect anything too deep, it's not my field, but still, some theory about that. And also to set the expectations here, I'll give you some insights on what really works well, what not, give you some cues. Then we're progressing on to my model, on which I won't spend too much time, because I could talk about that for ages, but it's boring. Now it's very interesting, but maybe for reading, and afterwards I'm going to go to the tools. Okay? What is learning? Learning is generally seen as a change in long-term memory. And how do people learn, and when do they do it? Well, Robert Coe is kind of a hero in research. Ed says learning happens when people have to think hard. So for us teachers, or other ones, it's business to make our pupils think hard, instead of waiting for the test and see if they can get a 6. Yeah? Obviously this is a rule of thumb. It's not very precise and it doesn't always work, but it's something to start off with. Where does the thinking happen? Well, basically what everyone's saying these days, it happens in the working memory. You've been hearing about this today. This is Daniel Willingham talking about this. Have you read this book? Good. Didn't you like it? It's awesome. Yeah, so if you forget anything about my talk today, that's fine. Go read this book. Yeah, it's readable, it's spot on, and you can learn a lot. I love it. There's lots of more books, but hey, I'm quoting this from him. He says, look, working memory, that's where we process in flux from the environment, from everything that's happening around us. We link it to long-term memory, And by the linking work that is being done, that's where we learn. Lots is also forgotten if you don't use it a lot. And it's forgotten. The more these links are activated, the bigger the chances that it actually be retained in long-term memory. That's kind of risky. Makes sense. Yeah. David Dido, a very well-known blogger in educational circles. I would follow him if I were you. Very critical, always funny. Spot on in many cases. Started with his learning to change in long-term memory, picked it up from Robert Coe and said, let's extend that a bit. It really works. The learning really works when we concentrate on examples. We know this, we give examples. Lots of them, we also give anti-examples. So it's this, so that means it's not that. Yeah? It helps if you help pupils to retrieve what they already know, preferably every lesson. What did we do last time? Did you learn that? It really helps. Helps us too. That's the linking of new content, concepts to what we already know, long-term memory. It really helps if we apply this new content to new contexts, which is logical, that's what we do. Yeah? It helps if we drill, practice. Yeah, like with Pedro, who is talking about tafels van vermenigvuldiging, yeah, multiplication. You have to drill it until it's fully automatic. And it really helps if you need to answer questions on the subject matter. So if we ask lots and lots of questions as teachers, this helps. When I take a look at myself, when I was a teacher 20 years ago, I wasn't the guy who asked lots of questions. I was the guy who knew. I was the guy who talked, that assumed that my pupils would also know. As I'm now, yeah, I'm talking to you, not asking too many questions, which is itself not so good. It really helps. But nothing new here, it's just a list. Obviously, we've been developing our curriculum for like 14, 15 years now, and we've got some principles, some starting points that we use. I like acronyms, sorry for that. Goals, what are the learning goals here? It's an essential question to ask, which many teachers actually fail to ask themselves. I've got colleagues who got this brilliant project, and then go, my pupils are so enthusiastic, they're working like crazy. And I go like, but learning goals, yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see, well, they do a lot of reading. Goodness. Yeah, of course they do. You need to, yeah, what's the next step? Where do you want them to be? How do they develop? You need to set your goals. Routines. They shouldn't be one-offs. Tasks shouldn't be one-offs. There should be routines, so the pupil learns to do stuff in an organized, regular way. Processes. It works. Yeah. That takes instruction. That takes practice. That takes evaluating. Then you can give proper feedback, and they can revise their work. Feedback in itself, useless. I mean, if they don't do any revision. If someone comes up to me afterwards and says, look, you talk too much theory, too little work for us, and I say, yeah, you're right. I'm going to give the exact same speech next time. Feedback's useless. Obviously, you need to organize everything well. Expect your pupils to organize their work if yours is not organized. Everything. And you need to do what works. And you need to put in the work, and your pupils need to put in the work. Otherwise, no progress. Makes sense? It's not complicated. Let's go on. What works? Well, we know, this is research ed, so we know a terrible lot of research has been done. We know basically that Hattie has acquired, evaluated lots of research. If you don't, go and read up on activities, visible learning, visual learning, yeah, visible. Making clear what the effect is of certain approaches in an effect size list or diverse ones. You know about this, don't you? Effect sizes? Don't need to go on about that. Good. In pedagogics, there's certain things that are certainly effective. In didactics, there's a whole lot of them. There's also quite a lot of them that are not. For example, my eldest daughter is 11, and I'm spying at other schools, and she's trying to select a school. Yeah, so we're visiting secondary schools. It's fun. And last Saturday we went to, I won't mention the specific school, but we went to a school pretty fancy, lots of pupils there, it was brilliant, lots of iPad ads, because every pupil got one at the beginning of the year. Well, you had to hire it for like 13 euros a month. That's like a selection procedure already. Didn't see any foreign types there, just white kids. So I asked some of these pupils, do you actually have books? Yeah, we have some. I didn't know which subjects again, because everything was in the laptop. I'm like, oh, really? Because it's been evaluated. Does it help laptops in class? 0.17 in effect sizes, whereas 0.4 is a normal average. So no, it doesn't really work in itself. It can even have negative effects. If you want to see some interesting stuff, go to this one. There's quite a lot of these interventions which have been worked out in this website. For example, behavior interventions. If you've got these pupils who have very disruptive behavior, you can put some extra time and people and money into that, and it'll work. The +3 means they'll be progressing by 3 months compared to the progress that. How do you measure progress in learning? You progress. You measure it in time. Compared to what an average kid would learn in 1 month or 1 year, they would have a 3-month advance. Now, sometimes it'll be 0, sometimes it'll be negative. They say something about the costs and about the amount of evidence that's available as well. It's quite a lot of evidence. It costs something, it's not cheap, but it works a bit. Yeah, collaborative learning doesn't cost a whole lot, but it works quite well. Digital technology, if applied correctly, works. Early years intervention costs a lot, which basically means 3 to 6 years old they're behind, but it also works. Feedback, if done properly, doesn't cost a lot. Works like crazy. Yeah, so check it out. It's fun, I think. All right, you're getting the PowerPoint if you want to do it wrong. Again, Robert Coe worked it out in this graph, yeah? This is Lusac for you. Lusac College, you pay a whole lot of money. For what? Yeah, it works, but it doesn't work very well. Feedback doesn't cost a lot of money, it works a lot better. Yeah, so you have to be doing what works. And you have a limited amount of time and money, so you better spend it on something that works. That's really what my talk is about today. You done? Yeah? Does it take long? I'm taking you through a model. I won't take you through all of it because of the time and the time it takes and the time it is now. But it's this, the secret is to break problems into small manageable chunks. Guys, teaching is complicated. There's so many things you have to think about. How do you organize all of them? That's where I start I organize it in a model because it just works for me. Hopefully it works for you as well. Based on the PDCA cycle, plan, do, check, act, you know about it. I've developed this cycle. Starts off by determining learning goals. For example, if I have a group and well, we've decided they have to learn how to write a basic essay in English for VWO, for example, then I'm going to assess those learning goals together with my students. Guys, we're planning to do this. It's going to be learning how to write this very short formal essay. Yeah, what do you think you'll be learning? I know what I want them to learn. I'm asking. They'll come up with the answers, put them on the list. These will be our learning goals. Keep them simple, keep them clear. Don't go for far transfer. Don't believe that learning how to write an essay will also teach you how to write a short story. It doesn't. Yeah. Then we specify the knowledge that you need to be able to write a formal essay. You have to know what an essay looks like. Yeah? You have to know what's in the first paragraph. You evaluate which skills you need. Oh, something with grammar, yeah? Linking words, maybe. And we start exercising those. In this phase, I call it the instruction phase. Yeah. We've got a lot of formative assessment tools. You have your Go Formative, your Kahoots, your Socratives, what else? Mentimeter, yeah, Menti, whatnot. They're usually here. What knowledge do you possess? Do you know what you need now? What can you do? Can you statements? Maybe some exercises, drills. But what about here? Larger tasks. Not so many. And I'd say this is where the magic happens of true formative assessment and feedback. Yeah. So this is the implementation. We have 6 to 8 week projects, lesson series, about one skill. Other skills come in as well. And we make clear what they need to do, what they need to know, what they need to be able to do. We make very clear what the task is about, and then they start working on that specific task. We're building it up, scaffolding, yeah. And there's an implementation, and we evaluate that. There will be peer feedback and individual self-assessment in the beginning. Later on, I step in and give extensive feedback. I'll tell you about that later. We evaluate what went right and what went wrong. I've split this up, guys. Evaluation is not the same as feedback. Yeah. So I assess, or they assess how it's done, then they get feedback, or give feedback. And the feedback is used to correct their stuff. And then we go again. Yeah. Other words, if you want all A's, ambition, awareness, whatever. Questions. What will you do? What will you need to know? What skills will you need? Task done. What did you do? Oh, what are you doing if I'm in class and they're working? What are you doing? Not what are you doing, but what are you doing? Okay. Where are you? How do it go? When it's finished, what should be improved? And what will you adjust? Alright? 2 phases to that: the insight or instruction phase, practice phase. Basically, you go through that a couple of times. Bye-bye. In my presentation, you can find all the details and the things you have to take into account. I'm not going to talk about that now because it will take too long. Lots of tips. Yeah, but I mean, it's a bit too much for now, isn't it? So this is what we do. Our assignments are extensive projects, lesson series, blended learning, online and offline. I require them to have notebooks and make notes come on. But they need their digital tools. They're both individual and cooperative tasks within the same project. Open-end tasks, so content is rich, they can determine what they want to say. But the tasks themselves are very clear-cut. Worked examples, I usually have examples ready from former students that I show step by step. I can take them through the scaffolding so they get from one stage to the other. I give feedback, they revise, and they have large final tasks. Remember Romeo and Juliet? That's fun. They had to perform it. It was a very serious, but it was fun. In the practice phase, so in the project itself, my role changes from instructor to coach. And I mainly ask questions there at work, usually in pairs or in groups of 3 or individually. I make sure that they do cooperate, discuss stuff instead of just dividing the work. You know that trick, right? And well, I told you this. Then we evaluate. Pupils can evaluate their own work or each other's work, but that usually goes with a checklist of hard criteria. You cannot really check in depth. So they can check whether in the essay they use I or you or don't, which they shouldn't. But the quality of argumentation, that's a bit harder. That's our expertise. So after a while, I start assessing as well. I'll tell you more about that later. Formative assessment leads to continuous feedback. Pastor Phil will tell you about that later too. My goal here in the feedback is that they learn continuously. So that's why I provide them with feedback. It's very important to give them as much feedback. But in the past, my feedback would be like this. I see that you've used a simple past verb, but it needs to be present perfect. You know, it's not did, it's have done. Write it down. That's not really feedback. Yeah, it is. But it's me knowing they did, they don't. So, goals continuous learning. They need to be fixing stuff. It needs to be a routine. It needs to be ingrained in every part of your lessons. Clear, and I'm asking the questions. Yeah. That could lead to a culture of feedback where asking for feedback is normal for all involved. Let me ask you a question, guys. How often do you ask pupils what they think about your teaching or your lesson? How often do you do that? Yeah?
Do it after every lesson with a little, it's simple, just with a smiley face, so
good.
A little comment box.
What's your question? What are you asking?
I usually ask, what did you learn? And you can write down what you know.
Excellent.
And then sometimes it's that, how did you feel about your confidence level? Sometimes if I'm in a rush and I didn't get the print, I just go give me the thumb. They're honest enough to give me this or this or this.
Yeah. Why'd you do it?
I feel like I kind of feel like a jerk if I stand in front of the class and I just dictate to them. And I don't get feedback if I was off or if I missed somebody. Because I have a motto where I say no line left behind. So if I tell that motto, I don't find out if I left somebody behind. I'm a jerk.
So lead by example, which is really important. Yeah. Do they give you good feedback?
Yeah, sometimes it hurts. But it's good. It's good to know.
Did you always do this?
No, when I first was a novice, it was like, first starting, I was really quite, no. I think it's only been the last couple of years I started feeling more confident, and I was really like, well, this is my motto. Am I living up to that motto?
Take care, guys. It's kind of slippery. Don't start doing this as a novice if you're not entirely sure about what you're doing. But if you have some experience after 5 years or so, you should. I mean, come on.
I took a chance.
Yeah, good. Excellent. I delivered a speech on mutual feedback. So you giving feedback to the pupils and the pupils giving feedback to you in London last September on the national conference. I asked the same question, group of 70. One teacher regularly asked pupils for feedback. That's shocking. But it's difficult as well, I totally understand. I'm more inclined to ask pupils, so how did you like it? When my lesson was good. When my lesson was like not so well prepared, it was a Monday morning, stuff like that, I'm like, okay guys, see you next time. Yeah.
I also have a box where they can put, if they don't feel like telling me right that moment, they can keep the sheet and put it in the box anonymously, so they don't have to tell me.
That's a good idea, actually, thanks.
Then they just don't, I don't know who did it, so I get straight feedback.
I do final assessments after a lesson series, obviously. I don't do it every lesson, but I try to. But I forget it as much as I
Like I forget, that's when I use the
yeah. Well, that's organization and the process which you needs to be ingrained as well. Thanks. Yeah. That's the regular organized bilateral feedback. You're not just giving feedback to you. They're giving feedback to you. Yeah. Talked about that. Some tools. That's what I promised. How much time left? Sorry? 10. Goodness. Office 365. How many of you are working with Office 365 in school? Good news for you guys. Microsoft has finally developed something. I'm an Apple fan for it. But Microsoft has finally developed something that actually works. It's a bit slow on your older computers. It takes some waiting, but it works. And especially the Teams tab. Are you using it? 5. What's that? 10, man? He's giving me 7. Okay. In order to save you from that waiting time, I've made some screenshots. You can form teams if you're in a 365 development environment. Sorry, and you can. A team could be one of your classes or all of them. Teams could be a year group shared with your fellow teachers. There's a chat room function, there's a library, there's a class notebook in which pupils can hand in their homework, and you can very easily, conveniently add assignments or tasks which have to be handed in this environment before a certain date. It's lovely if you want to do formative assessment. Go try it out. I'm really enthusiastic about it, and I'm not paid by Microsoft to say this. It looks a little bit like this. See, I have a number of classes here, yeah? And when I click on one of them, I get these 4 tabs. This is the chat room, this is the library, this is the homework room, class notebook, and this is the tasks. Yeah? You can see I sent a message to all of class, but they can also chat, ask me questions, ask each other questions. After the first initial fun and games, when they find out that they can also send emoticons, yeah, and they all start doing that, and you go like, come on, let's keep it on topic. It works. Yeah. This is the library tab. You can see that we've put in these are our tasks, materials for that term, so pupils can always access their materials. They do get them on paper as well.
Can pupils hand in team?
Yes, I'm getting to that now.
Okay.
This is your homework area. I can actually upload stuff to the homework area. This is by pupil. So pupils have their own folder. I can access all folders. They can access their own, and it stays there. Yeah, so you can see the progress that they're making individually. And this is the best part. This is the assignment part. In like 30 seconds, I can create a new assignment, which then automatically pops up in all of their team accounts, including the title, what they have to do, reference materials, what they have to hand in, a deadline with a time, a toggle switch. I can actually state whether they're allowed to hand in late or not, and it gives you a view something like this. This is where you can assess it. You can easily add feedback in the window. You can download stuff. You can see whether they're in time. None of them were. Well, this is what I use to have them hand in materials. And it works like a charm. The thing is, the bizarre thing is, ladies and gents, if you tell them go do this before that and that date, they don't. But if you say, I've created a new assignment and it's in Teams and it's for before Sunday 23:59, most of them will have handed it in. It's like magic. They all go like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll have to. It's exactly the same, but different. Get it? Another tool that I want you to know about is Langcore. This is called language. How many of you are language teachers? You need this. How many of you are teachers of science? Science teachers. Well, you could. There's 2 physics teachers who use it as well. This is adding prefab comments to a Word file. And it works like a charm as well. We've been essay writing with that. Did you like it? Why?
It provides you way more in-depth feedback because, I mean, the teacher has the time to do that, and you as a student, you really get insight on full detail. Like,
yeah.
Oh, this sentence, oh, this wording.
So they hand in a Word file with some kind of assignment, and usually you have time to just indicate errors or maybe a code. But now you just click a button and it automatically, if you select the right button, it automatically tells you, gives you in-depth feedback on what went wrong and how to correct it. And then the pupil or pupils go back and correct the actual mistakes and hand in version 2, which is a huge development. It's wonderful. That's learning at its best. Yeah? Lots of rich feedback, and it's time saving for me as a teacher, but you know, it's actually fun, so I spend lots of time because it works so well. So, yeah. We use pass and fail tests instead of I only give you this tip. You have all these grammar tests for a mark or other tests about basic stuff that they really need to know. Don't mark them. Turn them into pass-fail tests. We've been doing this. They need to have a 95% correct score. And then they pass. They don't get marked. Works. As long as they get the proper training and explanations. Of course, you're working with assessment rubrics, I take it. Final thing I want to be telling you about, which is fairly general, fairly recent. We've been doing this. We have projects with practical assignments. They're hard to assess. Do you recognize this? You have this practical assignment, they're fun to do. They're all into it. They're working. You think like, yeah, working goals, are they achieved? I'm not sure. I've got this rubric, it's rather vague. I'm tuning the rubric a bit, it doesn't really work. You know the trick? We found it out. It's wonderful. We have them present their learning curve. We have them present in a 3-minute presentation what they've learned throughout the lesson series. And the outcome is wonderful. I'm very enthusiastic about that. As long as you give them very definite instructions on how it works, 3 minutes precisely, include this and this and this, needs to be in that language, you need to bring a PowerPoint, don't read anything out, stuff like that. It's going to be great. So I'm truly enthusiastic about the most recent invention that one of my young colleagues came up with. So basically that's some tools that you might try out. I'm not saying that you have to, but they do work. So we started with those starting points. Key questions are always, does it help? Does it work? If it doesn't, don't do it. Easy enough. So get to work. Let's go exploring. If you want my PowerPoint, you're welcome to find it online after a while. Thanks for coming. And, was het nuttig?